And then at what point did you say, maybe we could actually market this? Maybe we can have a company that specializes in this?
That was in 1960, I guess. One thing was that when we left the Rand Corporation and started this company, and we set up an office in the back end of my garage out in Pacific Palisades, California. Rand, as you know, is in Santa Monica, California. And we both put in $250 in our car, and that was our capitalization of the company. Then we had to figure out what we wanted to do with it. We had a very critical decision as to what we were going to do with what we had learned. And I can still remember that clearly. We had out in the garage, there was a little patio there, and Jim can remember that, with eucalyptus trees and so on. And we would sit out, Chuck and I'd sit out there. That's where we did a lot of the work. And so we were sitting there thinking about, what are we going to do with this? The two obvious choices were to consult, take these ideas and go into a company like we'd been doing at Hughes Aircraft Research Labs, and say, we will help you, analyze some of your problems. We'd facilitate meetings, decision-making, and so forth, and sort of consult in that way. The other obvious choice was to really try to help others learn these skills, help an organization learn some of these these things that we had learned, the processes that we had sort of seen here. And I can't remember all of the decision criteria or objectives that we had, but the one was that we were pretty convinced that we could make a much more of an impact on organizations by doing that, which was really an important consideration. We thought, now what would happen? We tried to play out in our mind what would happen if we pursued each of these two alternatives. And, if you do the consulting, you'd be around Southern California, and it would be, and so forth. And we thought, that isn't going to make much of an impact on organization. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for life. So that was a major consideration, and that really became one of our basic beliefs. The other thing that was an important consideration was neither of us were really too enthusiastic about spending our lives going out and doing this with the company. Doing this kind of facilitation, consulting, and so on.
Why didn't you feel that would be fulfilling?
Well, because we had other things in mind that we would, like to do. The name we set up initially was Kepner Tregoe and Associates. That is what we incorporated, because we figured, at some point we would have associates. But I remember sitting in the back end of that garage trying to call up people. I mean, we did a lot of cold calls because we didn't know anybody, really. And I got through the secretary to this one CEO. And I said who I was in the organization. He said, what was the name of your company again? And I said, well, Kepner Tregoe and Associates. And there was a pause, and he said, I can just imagine how many associates you have sitting around there with you. Right?
Yeah.
But so we formed the company right away, but we didn't start trying to do anything until we had really, we obviously, when we left Rand, we knew we were going to do something.
Right.
But we didn't know exactly what it might be. We knew some of these ideas were very valuable, and we were trying to impart them to other people. And we would initially run these exercises in half days, and we went from 4 to 5 half-days. The last one was sort of a planning for implementation. I mean, it was, when you're looking back on it, it was essentially worthless. So the first places we got interested were the Bendix Research Labs.
That was the first client? Was that the first Kepner Tregoe client?
Well, pretty much first. It was among the first. Motorola maybe was preceded that by a bit. We started to work with Motorola Research Labs, which was in Riverside, California, and Motorola Semiconductor, which was in Phoenix, Arizona. And we do that once a week, and half day. And I mean, here's an example of how we didn't know what we were doing. I went up to Minneapolis trying to sell what we were doing, and went to Kimberly-Clark over in Neenah, Menasha, where their headquarters were at that time. They seemed really interested when I first saw them. I mean, really interested. But nothing ever happened. So the next summer, when we went back for this paid vacation, I went to see them, and they said, well, we were really interested, but we decided that we'd wait a year and see if you fellows were still in business. And then, so that's when we set up this thing, which was 5 full days. They wanted to have a live-in thing, and they said, well, we can't leave these people doing nothing in the afternoon. And of course, that was the big aha about application. You know, we've got to focus on not only the awareness of need, practice against a case, but we have to have them start to apply.
I remember we would go and talk to past participants, and everyone said, boy, that is the greatest program I've ever been to. It was really exciting. And you'd say, well, what have you done as a result? Boy, that was the greatest program I ever went to. And we found that there was very little evidence, broad evidence, that they were doing anything with it. Some people were, but not in general.
But not enough.
That's when we figured out we not only have to teach them the ideas, we've got to teach them how to use them.
In 30 words or less, what does Kepner Tregoe do, John Zimmerman, as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think in the very simplest terms, we install rational process in an organization to improve their strategic and operational problem solving and decision making.
Back in the early 60s, that we were going to make a difference in this world.
Yep.
We were going to, what we were doing was so damned important. And you got to also remember that the 60s were the time when everyone was going around hugging each other in sensitivity sessions and so on. And we said, you know what, that's fine. I mean, that's probably everybody needs to be hugged. But the world needs a big dose of rationality, you know. So we'll concentrate on the rational side, let all these other people do what they're doing do the hugging. And we had such a missionary zeal. I mean, that's the best analogy. So, you know, wherever you got people walking around on the face of the earth, send somebody over there to convert them, you know. What really makes for success in our kind of business, if you don't have that passion for process, if you don't have that passion for what you're doing, forget it. If it's just another job, forget it. We'll never be successful.
What do you see then as the biggest challenge facing Kepner Tregoe?
Yeah, this is not some educational institution. It's an institution that's designed to change organizational behavior and make it better. To me, that's how the passion has to exhibit itself. That these things work, and they do work, and you got to get out there among them and make them work.